Yet another former Trump campaign and administration official now facing federal charges. This time, it's Steve Bannon. Bannon and two more associates, they're charged with defrauding donors who thought that they were giving money to fund the border wall at the Mexican border. Instead, prosecutors say $1 million went into Bannon's pocket. Now, the president, he was asked about the case this morning.
Well, I feel very badly. I haven't been dealing with him for a long period of time. I know nothing about the project other than I didn't like, when I read about it, I didn't like it. I said, this is for government, this isn't for private people.
Well, that hardly the only bad news the president heard today. Federal judge in New York rejecting Trump's latest efforts to block the Manhattan DA from getting his hands on Trump's tax returns. Trump's legal team already appealing, and this could head, believe it or not, back to the Supreme Court. DA Cyrus Vance, he's demanding 8 years of Trump's personal and business returns as part of an investigation into those business practices. Joining me now to discuss this and more, former federal prosecutor Gene Rossi. And Gene, a couple things jumped out at me vis-a-vis Bannon. First of all, couldn't happen to a better guy, but also when you look at the laundry list, and this is pretty much straightforward financial fraud, but he joins a list of the president's campaign chair, his longtime lawyer, his longtime political guru, the national security advisor, the deputy campaign manager, a campaign federal foreign policy advisor, and now obviously his campaign CEO and chief strategist talking about Bannon. Quite a rogues gallery.
Well, in the 1960s, Richard, there was a great movie called The Dirty Dozen, and it was a war movie with James Brown and Lee Marvin. And we are approaching a dozen associates of Donald Trump who have been convicted at trial or have pleaded guilty. And they all were part of that vortex of his campaign staff and his political apparatus. It's actually very stunning.
Well, what's interesting, a couple things about that to me. One is, you know, Trump threw him under the bus when this went down, and we have no reason to believe that Trump was financially, in on, getting the kickbacks from this. But usually, Trump keeps those that might note some bad information. I would put Bannon into that category. Keeps them close. Not this time. And the other thing is, he was arrested. I love this. Off the coast in his yacht in Connecticut by the U.S. Postal Service investigators, and this was done through the SDNY. We all know what happened with Berman. Talk about the perversity here, or the karma, that you've got the SDNY still investigating one of the president's own after Berman was pushed, and that it was the post office inspectors that actually got to issue the warrant.
Well, let me just say this about the Postal Service, which has taken a big hit from the president. I worked with a lot of Postal Service agents. Some were just absolutely outstanding, the best of the best. So I'm not surprised that they're part of this. But I want to say this, though, Richard. Why did Bill Barr try to trick and dupe Jeffrey Berman into resigning or transferring to the Department of Justice? Was this investigation part of it? And the reason I ask that is this Trump, this 501c3 or 501c4, We Build the Wall, think about its purpose. Its purpose was to help Donald Trump fulfill a campaign promise. So if I'm a prosecutor getting cooperation from anybody who's going to plead guilty, I want to know what, if any, involvement or knowledge did Donald Trump have in the mechanics and operation of We Build the Wall. That's where the rubber meets the road.
The other decision today, vis-a-vis Trump's tax returns, I know this thing's getting appealed already, but talk about the significance of it, Gene, in that, is this just, knocking the football to another court here, or does this make it even more likely these returns are going to come out, and could the Supreme Court decide this thing sooner than later?
Is the Supreme Court going to decide this sooner or later? It all depends on how fast the Second Circuit rules against Trump. There is absolutely no way that Trump's lawyers are going to win on appeal with the Second Circuit. Then it would go to the Supreme Court, and if they move with alacrity, they could just deny the appeal post haste. But I want to say this about this subpoena. It is going after documents that the Trump organization created or used to hide or implement the election fraud conspiracy to which Michael Cohen pleaded guilty. This is a big deal. Did the Trump organization or Trump himself take any kind of deduction or illegal entry on their returns or the corporate returns that related to the fraud regarding the Stormy Daniels settlement? That's what we have to find out.
For me, Gene, who knows what's going to happen in November, but hypothetically the president loses and hypothetically actually leaves. Wouldn't, if you were Donald Trump, you be more concerned that you're a private citizen and these things get adjudicated then when you don't have, a pardon pad here, and certainly no one's going to be rushing to your defense? Now you're a private citizen, whether it's civil or criminal exposure, you're on your own.
Absolutely. If he loses, and we'll see what happens on November 3rd or after that, I mean, we have to wait for mail-in ballots. But if he loses, he will lose a great shield that has protected him for many years, 3 or 4 years. The OLC memo of the United States Department of Justice, which says you can't indict a sitting president. Once the emperor loses his clothes, that protection of that memo, he's a private citizen. So that's problem number one. Problem number two, when a litigant goes into the federal court or state court and they're the president of the United States, judges can't help themselves. They always give that person, the president, more deference. But if he's a private citizen, he's like any other Joe Schmo or Sally Schmo who's appearing for that court, and it's a different ball game, totally different ball game.
Last thing, Gene, and it comes back full circle to the election. You and I have talked too many times, and you know the man, Bill Barr I'm talking about, and you don't recognize him. But if he tries to put his finger on the scale, more than just trying to put his finger on the scale, but incorporate the Department of Justice here and trying to pervert an election, should we, the people, feel comfortable that the Justice Department won't go along with it? Or at this point, are even you not shocked anymore as to the lengths that not only he'll try to, but even succeed in perverting justice?
I'm going to be a Pollyanna here. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of Department of Justice lawyers, career lawyers, and it breaks my heart. They are keeping silent. But if the election results are clear-cut, and the Attorney General Bill Barr does what he has been doing, which is carrying water for the president, if he tries to do that after a clear-cut victory for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, you are going to see whistleblowers coming out of the woodwork who are career attorneys, and they're going to say, enough is enough. We want our Justice Department back.
Well, your lips to God's ears, as always, Gene. I appreciate it. Let's see how this all plays out, but I always really value the time you give us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Up next, more on the convention. Sure, we obviously showed you what President Obama had to say in that stirring speech, but there was other highlights from last night. Kamala Harris, Gabby Giffords. You had emotional stories from immigrants struggling to deal with the administration crackdown, families separated, but also a mom whose son was a victim of gun violence, and her story heartbreaking. Stay with us.